Hello and welcome to Krachtwerker, and this is an interview video today. We're speaking to Peter from VFE Pedals, Boutique and Custom Effects Pedals from Puyallup in Washington. I hope I pronounced that name right. Started in 2010. They built some really fancy, snazzy, lovely, interesting pedals from all different types. I'm looking at their Facebook page right now, which is VFE Pedals, and their website is vfepedals.com. So in a moment you'll hear the interview with myself and Peter, going through the motions. Usually all the previous interviews were done via the form. I'm going to try and do a bit more over Skype or phone calls, or if they're in the same country as myself, I'm hoping to do them live. So with no further ado, please welcome Peter.
My name is Peter Rudder, and I'm the owner and founder of VFE Pedals. We specialize in making compact, like super versatile analog effects pedals. And we have one of the big things that we got going on now is our custom shop, where customers can choose the paint color and the graphics and all that. And we've optimized it so that in most cases it doesn't cost extra to do all that. So
yeah, I actually had a wee bit of a play with that. I thought it was...
Yeah, the pedal wizard. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very good. What I wanted to do, if you don't mind, is I was looking at all the pedal ranges, and there's a couple, which I don't know what they do. So some of them say distortion, some of them say blues king. I'm assuming that's some sort of blues breaker type thing. I'm just making some assumptions here, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But some that intrigued me is the Merman. Is that a chorus?
No, the Merman is basically, I'd been asked for years and years and years to do a clone type pedal. And so for the longest time I was just like, no, for a couple of reasons, but one of them was I'm not into just making something that's identical or slightly tweaked. Yeah. I don't mind doing something that's a clone that just has more options, because the more options gives the player the choice essentially to mod it or to keep it the way it was. And so that to me is something that you can offer that's unique, but I'm not trying to just like do the exact same thing that someone else is doing. So anyway, so that's what the Merman is. It's my response to all the questions about building a clone style. And actually, here just a second. Kurt, could you take this call? This is the direct color systems. So we just today we had literally 15 minutes ago had a problem with our printer, our graphic printer. And the print head and then the LED light that cures the ink, they separated from each other and started making all these noises, and we're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So Kirk's I just got called back, so Kirk is taking that call to see if we can't figure out how to fix it, what happened, how to prevent it, from happening.
What kind of printer is that?
It's a UV. Basically, it's like an inkjet printer, but the ink is UV cured. So it's not cured by air; it's cured by UV light, and so we can print full color, high resolution graphics straight onto the pedal.
Yeah, I was going to be tempted to ask you how you do the graphics for the pedals, because I was looking at some of the kind of close-up pictures, and it's pretty neat. There's so many ways of doing it. Some people just literally stick on a sticker, and some people etch in different ways. And do you mind actually, unless it's some sort of secret?
No, it's not a secret.
Spinning a wheel at a time, because they do look good. They do look.
Yeah. So
pretty high quality.
So it's it's a printer, so it's not a silkscreen process where you burn a screen and you lay your graphic on top of it. It's not a sticker. It's a printer, so it shoots ink directly onto the pedal. It's got a head that goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and so and that UV cured ink is super durable, way more durable than a silkscreen or sticker would be. So and we're getting better and better at making the prints, as we learn more about how it works and stuff, we're able to make even better prints, higher quality ones. So these prints should last a really, really long time. Be pretty hard to chip as well. So yeah, and it's crazy how precise it is. I mean, we're using 600 DPI resolution, which is very high resolution. You can tell if there's something that's a pixel off in the print, and you're like, oh my gosh, that one pixel, you can see the one.
Well, I mean, it looks like this is going a bit beyond a labor of love. I mean, there must be quite a bit of investment going on. Firstly, in the range of pedals, the whole choosing mechanism of the website, which is pretty snazzy, and the print. I'm assuming the printer needs to have some sort of bespoke cradle to hold the pedals in place, or how does that?
It actually is it's a flatbed printer. So we set the case on top of the bed, and the bed has a surface a little bit sort of sticky. It's not sticky in the sense that it leaves residue, but it doesn't slide around.
Yeah.
And so the print head never actually touches it; just slides right over the top of those things, just millimeter to above them or whatever. And that's how it does a print. So it doesn't require us to make any custom jigs or anything like that. We print a grid down onto the sheet and then set the pedals on top of it, and then the printer does the rest.
So I'm looking at the pedals now, and one comes to me. The coral reef is then the chorus. Please tell me.
Yes, there you go.
Bingo. There you go. And the other one that really interests me is the pale horse. What's that?
The Pale Horse is it's an overdrive pedal. It originally came out of the Tube Screamer experimentation that I was doing early on. But one of the things that Tube Screamers are known for and are good at are super compressed sounds, and that's because of the type of clipping diodes that are used, which is why a mid EQ works really well with a Tube Screamer. But if you want it to be more to be able to make it more transparent and sound really good, or if you want it to just have more feel to it and breath and make it so that it's more touch sensitive, you've got to back off on the amount of compression by using different clipping components. And so we did a number of things. We changed out clipping components. We changed out, we removed the buffer stages, which really weren't necessary if designed correctly. They were only necessary in the Tube Screamer because it used solid state switching rather than true bypass. So, and then we added a charge pump so that it could get the op amp itself also can breathe more and have more headroom before it begins to clamp down on the signal. So the result is that it's way more dynamic, significantly louder. I think, I don't know, might be 20 decibels louder when you crank it all the way up. It's just ridiculously loud. It's at least 10 decibels louder than a Tube Screamer, if not closer to 20. It's pretty insane. And then, of course, it's got the extra EQ controls as well to tailor the high and low end cut. But because it's more dynamic, the drive engine is designed to have more room before it really clamps down on the signal.
Yeah.
You can EQ it where it's not quite as mid-focused and still have a natural drive tone. Whereas with something that's really squashing down, in order for that squashed signal to sound right, a lot of times you have to cut a lot of lows and highs just to get it to sound right.
Well, it's interesting what you're saying, because I don't actually like the Tube Screamer as much as most people love it, and it's pretty much for everything that you've said. It always feels it's a bit, just a bit clippy more than anything else. I don't know why people say it's warm. I never got that from it. And I've heard some of the Klon kind of demos, which sounded quite nice. And I only did one pedal ever, and that was a clone of an Empathy drive, which I really loved. And I thought to myself, I think the only thing the Empathy drive lacks is a bit more gain. And it kind of sounds as if it, this is somewhere between an Empathy drive and a Tube Screamer type thing.
Yeah, I'm actually not familiar with Empathy Drive, so I mean, I don't know if I could even.
It's more like a boost. They call it more like a boost. So it's not supposed to be a real overdrive pedal. It's more like a drive pedal. It's just a very. Well, I had it built up. I had it into the front of an amp, and it was just it just really kind of warmed and drove the amp a bit. But it never got to a stage where it really started clipping or anything like that. And the other thing that I completely dislike is any sort of compression on pretty much anything. So that's kind of one of the reasons I started getting away from the kind of the Boss distortion pedals and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Although I like them, but not for my own purposes anymore.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so you were using a kit basically. Looks like, right? The empathy driver.
I think there's a company that originally built the empathy drive, and the one I bought it off a company down here in England somewhere, and it was just a kit that you can build. Very nice kits the guy does. So he sends you basically the board and all the components. You can even have him assemble it if you want, but it's kind of for people who want to hobby a bit, but they don't really know what they're doing, so all they need to do is solder a bit, you know.
Gotcha.
Sorry, solder, because we're talking about
That's right.
So, but it was. I mean,
I know, I've been saying it wrong the whole time. So, looking at the schematic on that one just looks to be a simple. Looks like it's not very many parts, right? It just looks like a simple booster, and it looks like it's set up where it's kind of like, have you heard of the Electro Harmonix LPB1? It's a linear power booster.
I've heard of it, yeah.
So it looks set up, I mean, not exactly, but very similar to that, except for the difference is the transistor in it is set up for lots and lots of gain, but you can control how much volume goes into that gain stage. So when you pull down the gain, it cleans up, and it's got a volume control, so you can control how loud it is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a more versatile. So you're right. It is a boost pedal, and it can add its own saturation just through that.
But I've got a normal boost pedal, and it doesn't act the same once it's in front of an amp. This one also, apparently, they come with different. What do they call them? The oil ones, the oil and paper ones. What are they called? Not the transistors. Is it the transistors? See, you're talking to a non-technical guy.
Oh, the capacitors. You're talking capacitors.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So this one, you can order the expensive oil and paper capacitors, or you can just get the kind of cheaper ones. And apparently, it doesn't make a huge difference. But
and that's one of the things as an electrical, like kind of knowing some of the electrical engineering behind how circuits works and kind of the equations that govern them. I can tell you that there are some times that it won't, like you could put the world's worst capacitor in a place and it wouldn't matter. And there are other times where the circuit's going to be much more sensitive to what type of capacitor, and knowing the difference is the difference between being someone who's really trained in electrical engineering versus someone who just heard that this type was better or whatever. And it's like, well, okay.
See,
there are times where you can make that argument, but it's not in every case. So
this is one of the few places where I'm happy to be the non-anorak, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I just want to listen to what they sound like and play around with the stuff. Yeah. And I'm more than happy with that. If I can buy a kit and solder a bit, hey, I'm happy with that. But more than that, I'm not so sure. Although I kind of went in and read some of the text on your Facebook page, it would be good if you could give us a bit of an overview of what got you started making this stuff in the first place.
So I played acoustic and I started playing electric, and so I got into pedals as soon as I started playing with an electric guitar. A few months into just testing, and the gear hunt that just about every person who plays an electric guitar goes through at some point. Just about a few months into that, I saw some of the other offerings other than just what you would see at a Guitar Center or something like that, and mod options and all that kind of stuff. And then eventually found Build Your Own Clone, which is actually located near me. It's in the same state as I'm in over here in Washington, and they sell kits. So I bought a few kits. They send you even a free one with your first purchase called the Confidence Booster, and it's basically supposed to be a really simple boost circuit, kind of like the one you built. Very, very simple. And then the idea is that you can do this, and if you miserably fail, you can send all the other kits back, and they'll give you a full refund. Anyway, I built it, and I miserably failed. It didn't work at all because I'd never soldered before, and but I didn't care, so I kept going.
So you
figured it out, and then started just modifying, and from there the hobby just kind of took off.
So but also the learning curve of actually the electronics started there, or were you trained in that beforehand?
I had a mathematics degree and a minor in physics, so I was familiar with Ohm's law and simple circuit things. There's definitely been a lot of learning there, but having a math degree does make it much easier to pick up these kinds of things. So, yeah, so that the math training certainly helped me learn as I went and figure out, and even get to the point where now a lot of times when I'm designing, I'll write down the math equations that govern something before I design it, just to see visually if it makes sense. And then tweak I'll use my ears are sort of the final tweaking, but the original design is almost all done, as as an intellectual exercise, I guess, in a way, a concept driven. So it helps me develop things more quickly because I can get much closer to what I'm going for very quickly without a lot of trial and error, and then I can use trial and error to kind of tune things and solve problems that I maybe just didn't think about when I was first designing.
Okay. So do you just make pedals?
At this point, yes, that is all we do. We just do pedals, pedals, pedals.
So when's the first valve pedal and when's the first valve amp coming out with
I've never actually
hand-wound pickups?
Yeah.
When's that happening? Tomorrow?
There are no plans for that.
No?
I've actually on paper, a tube circuit's is simpler than like an analog circuit, but in actual reality, because of the voltage levels and the other considerations and limitations of valves, that it's a much different ballgame. And so since I don't have any experience or desire to go there, it's also much more expensive to get into. It costs a lot more money to build a company that builds amps than it is to build a company that builds pedals.
Yeah.
And honestly, like if you were to drop $1,000 on pedals, the amount of sounds you would be able to create are far more than one amplifier.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But a good amplifier is great, and so I'm glad that there's those companies out there. But it's not going to be me.
Do you ever talk to some of these guys? I mean, there is a connection between the amp and what's in front of it. I mean, it just came into my head. I mean, has anybody actually had a chat about these things with an amp builder and a pedal builder together to maybe,
I think enough of most of the things are because we're talking about a lot of amp circuitry is from the '60s, so you're not talking about like new cutting edge things. So for the most part, you're not, just from an electrical engineering side, you're not having to worry too much about some particular amp way of handling it. And this is the part where kind of my design philosophy comes in. If you design it so that the user can tweak the things that you might need to consider for that amp, like is that amp more mid-rich, or is it got a little bit flabbier bottom end, or what what are the things with that amp that if you were to just use a 3-knob pedal, you wouldn't be able to work around all amps.
Yeah.
But since our designs use 6 controls, we're able to, especially with those drive circuitries, the extra EQ allows the player to kind of compensate for any of the just unique things that unique challenges that each amp has. So it hasn't been as much of an issue, especially for my design, the way to design. The pedals translate really well when you. They sound very different, but because there's enough EQ range, they translate really well because the player can tune it to that their gear setup basically. And if players are okay with kind of it's a little more difficult when you have 6 knobs versus 3 knobs to figure out what to do. But once they get over that hump, I mean, it's just so much better because then it's like you can use that pedal on every amp you got and every guitar you got.
Yeah, yeah. So that actually leads into, at the moment, your pedal builder is only for kind of let me get the wording right. Single pedal. What about the double pedals and the triple pedals? When can they be expected?
So people can inquire now if they want a multi-effect pedal. That's an option right now. We even make it available on the website to kind of purchase, and then we'll just communicate via email the design, all the other aspects of it. So that's already available. If someone does need I need essentially a 3-effect pedal board that I can just plug in and play and take to a gig or whatever. Yeah, we can totally work with anyone on those kinds of things. As far as pedals that are essentially designed from the ground up for that, we've only got one so far, and it's almost done. It's called the RUP. It's the big, giant, pink multi-band distortion. Also comes in black. But that thing has 18 knobs, and it's one pedal. Plus internal switches and chimp bots and stuff. So it's definitely not for the faint at heart. But it is very, very, very powerful. So we have a bunch of ideas like that. We'd like to do some of those this year, probably summertime. But that's kind of we'll definitely do some experimenting. As far as like when they come out as products, I don't know for sure. And even if I did, I probably would wait to tell anyone.
I see. Okay. So,
because it's not happening. It's not happening like in the spring. So, so we're talking fall, maybe winter, if we do any of those larger things. But we've been looking at it, and people have asked about it, and we have some pretty cool ideas that we think that would be great for that. So.
Well, I like the idea of a 3-stage gain setup on the pedal board. Having a boost at the end, a slight drive, and then a distortion, and then a boost right at the end. I like that idea, and I always thought that maybe having it all in one pedal that actually works well together with all 3 engaged and disengaged to just one or the other on would actually be a quite nice thing. Not so sure if you need one extra knob for if you want to do some heavy metal and proper high gain stuff as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can see that the pedal becoming quite large. So
yeah.
I see you sitting in some sort of workshop there. Is this where do you operate from?
Yes, we're actually moving here. This is actually my my garage right now, and we're actually moving into a larger facility this weekend. So, but I am here. The stuff you see behind me is just parts, lots and lots and lots and lots of parts. So,
I'm assuming that if you're working at home and you've got your area of building in your house, you tend to always work. So it's maybe a good idea to get rid from the house.
Yeah. I mean, there's always stuff to do. So, So yeah, I've definitely done my fair share of work when I probably should just take a break.
yeah, I'm sure. I'm very sure. What is it? Why did you continue doing this? What is it what you like most about doing this?
Oh, that's a good question. It's not a simple one to answer. There's so many facets. I mean, part of it's just the personal desire to create and to be able to meet challenges that are out there as far as like, what can this pedal, what can be done with a phaser pedal, or what can be done that hasn't been done before. I mean, that's a lot of the guys in this industry, a lot of the circuit designers in this industry. I mean, that's what they're driven by probably more than anything else. Is that creative process of doing something new. and the whole thing. There's also parts that of just I wouldn't have ever thought this getting into it, but learning how to run a business has also been something that has been a great learning experience and something I've enjoyed. Learned a lot of hard lessons, but it's been something I've enjoyed. And then, of course, like just the interaction with customers and getting their feedback and their ideas and that collaboration, that's really enjoyable. So,
well,
so I'm sure there's a bunch of other reasons why I've been doing this, but those are a few.
Well, I've not spoken to anybody yet who's not pretty much said the same kind of thing. They love the people, they love the communities, the online communities. They all sell. I mean, one of my questions is, what pisses you off? What do you like about boutique audio gear and building it and being in that business? And most of them say, I don't like people who just clone, but other than that, actually, everybody's just wonderful and cool. That's pretty much a standard answer. And I must say, I've spoken to quite a few people now, and it seems to be a very good stereotype, to be honest. So can't agree there. Can't but agree there. You know. So it was a bit confusing. So is this now full time or not?
It's been full time for a long time, and so the post today was to kind of share that my wife and I are expecting our first kid here, but that'll mean that I'm going to be moving away from being full time at VFE to be full time elsewhere. Because VFE is profitable and makes money, but when my wife has to take some time off of work and the VFE has to carry the whole load, it's not quite there. Yeah. There's a lot of expenses, especially when you're supporting the whole thing. So,
but so that kids, they have very small fingers. They can get into all those little places. So it's probably a case of teaching them early, and everything will be just fine. Yeah. And I don't know how the rules are about child labor up there, but there might be ways around it.
Yeah.
So from a musical point of view, what's your direction? What kind of muso are you?
I don't even know. I enjoy hearing how people do things and what they do, just the creative element of it. And so that part, even if I'm not like necessarily grooving with their type of like sound or whatever, that part is far more interesting than anything else. So so I don't really have like this. I obviously have natural tendencies of music that I just like without that information, but that's not the most interesting part. So I don't know. I one of the things that once I started building pedals, I didn't have as much time to dedicate to playing. I still play, but I mean, now my mind, rather than focusing on learning how to like create some new music, it's how do I create these new tones and these textures and stuff for people to play with and to work with the artists. And that's kind of like what is sort of like my creative like outlet, if you will, right now.
Yeah. So. Well, do you have any good names you can drop who's using your stuff?
Kirk could probably help me better than me off the top of my head. I know that we one of the pedals that we developed for Adam Nolly Get Good in Periphery, which is a metal band here in the States, so yeah, that was the Focus pedal. I should say what pedal it was, and let's see here. I know there are other people that I've sent off pedals to be out of request, but they're not necessarily like.
We have a whole lot of albums that we can point to.
Yeah, they're not. It's not like that's one of the things about running your own business is it's not like I've followed up with every artist who's used our stuff to say, oh, what album did you use it on? Can you help me? Because as much as I love hearing it, it's like, the daily grind of getting stuff. It's like, if they tell me, it's like, yeah, it's awesome. But sometimes I don't have time to hunt them all down.
So you still in the band?
I know. What's that?
Are you still in the band? You guys?
I'm not currently. I still play around and kind of like by myself or just mess around and maybe play with a couple people here and there, just jam session type stuff, but not like perform. No.
Are you now adamant that you're not going to use anybody else's gear other than your own? Are you there yet?
I'm not the only one with creative ideas in the industry. Probably. So I don't. If it sounds
okay, let's put it this way.
If it sounds great, it sounds great. I'm not gonna.
Have you ever bought anybody else's boutique pedals?
Not in a while. But most of that just has to do with I'm in. Most of the free cash that I have is investing to help VFE grow and be as good as it can be.
Yeah.
So if I used it to fund my own hobby, then you wouldn't see this many parts, and we wouldn't have these capabilities that we have. So
yeah, for sure.
So I get to enjoy sort of interacting with those guys at shows here and there, and seeing their stuff, and I get to play with it or whatever. But yeah, I haven't been a big purchaser anytime recently. So,
well, okay, I'm gonna do something now. I'm gonna go to the quick facts. Let's see if we can do these quick facts. So, who's your favorite guitar maker?
Guitar maker, man.
So what's your
okay, I'll preference. I should preface it. Why can't I even say the word?
It's late. That's
whatever. Anyway. Anytime anyone's asked me for a favorite of something, I'm like my mind goes blank. Like, do I have a favorite? So sometimes I can't think of anything, even though I do enjoy certain things. So guitar maker, man.
The problem is there are too many about now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can say that I have a guitar that I have that I really, really like is I have an aluminum hollow body from Normandy Guitars down in Salem, Oregon. And for me, especially coming out of being an acoustic player, the feel is right and the tone and clarity is exactly what it's going for. So it doesn't have like the sustain, or the strings are much thicker, so they don't easily bend like a normal electric guitar, but it's much better feel for me coming out of the acoustic world.
Okay.
And the hollow body, is typically like kind of a big warm sound, and so it definitely has that big part, but the fact that it's aluminum rather than wood gives it this nice top end clarity that I really like.
What's your favorite effect on electric then? Is it distortion? Is it? I know it's a stupid question, but you know what? That's exactly why I put it in there, because I know exactly what mine is. Mine is that just before that amp can't handle it anymore and it starts going into the breakup. It's that simple for me, you know what I mean? And so it might be, I don't know, some sort of sustainer or whatever. So I
tend to I would probably say the first sort of sound that comes in my head is kind of a warm driven tone that works still isn't so saturated that you can't like play a chord and have clarity on that chord, but still saturated enough where it's not like it'll, there's some that's on edge of breakup where you have to dig into the strings to get the saturation. So not that level, definitely saturated, but not so much where you get like just lack of clarity on the chords. I kind of like that big kind of sound because you can, with your playing style, you can make it, with big and heavy or whatever, or you can make it something that's more like, I don't know, indie rockish, if that's right, like mellow and kind of atmospheric or whatever.
Yeah, I'm currently in this project with a friend of mine, and we're actually trying to do really heavy music, but the weird thing is the drive has been turned down a lot more than I ever have, and it's because of that. You know, the moment that the drive is more clear and heavy, it actually doesn't sound heavier just because it's more driven or more distorted. Yeah. It sometimes actually starts going the opposite way. Amp maker.
Oh, amp maker.
Your quick facts are quite long, to be honest. Amp maker.
Oh man.
Are you a Fender or a Mesa Boogie guy?
That is a Peter J. Mark. That's true. I'd probably be, if you were to just, you know, like kind of the big threes, Fox, Marshall, Fender. I'd be more of a Fender guy, I'm sure. Although I really enjoy Vox too. So, but probably just for the cleans, the Fender.
I see. And music genre. This is a stupid question again.
Man. Yeah, probably something more indie, but like I've liked so many different things over my life. I don't know.
Who's your favorite band then, or artist?
Most of my favorite people who play are just people I know. So like I'd be like Jenny Snipstead is a girl who has an amazing voice and is amazing. Like and she plays acoustic and keyboard, and I love to hear her sing and perform. But no one's gonna have ever heard. Well, very few people have ever heard of her.
Well,
she's just.
We can fix that with YouTube, can't we? I mean.
Yeah, so most of the people that I enjoy like going to their shows or hearing their latest album are people that I know, but they're not necessarily big name artists.
So who's your favorite guitarist then? And you can't say the guy on your left there.
You wouldn't.
Yeah, don't worry. I wasn't gonna do that. Favorite guitarist. Gosh.
I must admit, you're a bit like.
See, that's a tough one. Like, you know how like there are guys who like when they see another guitarist, it's like I want to be like them. I tend to not have that reaction. It's more like, oh, I'm super like inspired by your just like create the way what you've done, but I don't not necessarily trying to go do what you've done. You know, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. I think it's a bit like me. I have a problem with being. I don't get starstruck, right? So I think things through too much, so that whole piece goes away. So yeah, I too don't really have a favorite band or a favorite this or favorite that. I like specific aspects of specific things, and therefore it's really hard for me to pen something down properly. But that makes the interview much more interesting. Instrument then. Maybe we should ask this differently. Not playing, but hearing in an album or in a song. Would that be a guitar or a saxophone?
Oh yeah, I'm still a guitar guy. Like especially for kind of just kind of the bulk of the music. I'm still guitar driven music is still definitely something I tend to prefer.
Good. Then we'll try and make these last ones actual quick facts. Favorite drink?
Favorite drink?
Late night coffee or...
I honestly, this is going to sound stupid. I really like water.
Rock and roll, man. Rock and roll. Okay, favorite place then?
Favorite place?
Yeah.
Oh man, the Seattle area is just awesome.
Well, see, actually, you say water, but where you are, do you have really nice, clean water? Do you have, or is it like recycled water? We're here in Scotland, and our water pretty much comes from the sky every time I open the tap, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It is like, it's pure and clean, and it doesn't even create any kind of alkaline deposits in your kettle. Yeah, it's just, and it is just, you can sit here and drink the stuff forever. You know, it is just, you could actually call it your favorite drink, no problem.
Yeah.
So
for kind of a we're not necessarily urban, but there's urban areas and suburban areas. It's a fairly populated area in the place that we're at. For that kind of area, I don't know if I've ever been anywhere where I felt like their water was better.
I'll agree with that.
There might be places that are like like where you're at, where it's like it's not as super not like a large landscape of cities, but it rains enough here. It's not the quantity of rain, the fact that it's always raining, that it tends to in a way clean up things. And so it's just anyway, water's pretty good here.
So let's see if we can make the last one easy. Favorite food?
Ice cream.
Very good. That was.
I wish it was a staple.
But are you guys still under snow there?
It has not snowed this winter.
That's weird, because I thought you guys were all in.
That's the East Coast.
Oh, is it? All right, okay.
The West Coast, especially the Pacific Northwest, has had an very unusually warm winter. So it's it's still sprinkled and stuff like that, but it's even been fairly dry for a normal winter. It's usually really wet. In fact, some of the skiing areas here, which are usually hot spots, are literally closed. Have been closed like the entire winter.
Wow. Okay.
So,
well,
been kind of crazy.
Peter, I left these are additional questions I thought I'd ask you. I left them specifically to the end just to see if they might or might not be included. One of them is, do you have any outlets you sell through? Do you have any kind of shops and stuff like that you sell through? Do you have any, have you sold much to the UK? How much do you, or even Europe in general, how much do you kind of export?
Yeah, so I've got a handful of dealers in Europe and UK. I think the only one right now in the UK is what's it called again? I should make sure I get it right here. Guitar Effects Direct, and he's actually on one of the islands, I think, and so I think he might be just an online dealer. Yeah. And then we've got some places in France, Germany. I think there's one in Sweden, I think. This is off the top of my head. So there is a page on our website to find out that information, and we're actually we've got some more dealers beyond that I need to add to the list. So, okay. But there's information there. If there's not anything in someone's country, we ship worldwide. So
okay,
we can.
yes. Okay.
We can.
You can make it happen.
I can make it happen. Yes.
Okay. Here's a more complicated question. So, and this kind of came about listening to you talk about in the beginning, and I was looking at your site, and it looked like you were more interested in the kind of technical side of things than anything else, and this is what drives you. So I thought that this is a question appropriate to you. Now, you can decide to answer this or not, or decide to incriminate yourself or not. But what I'd like to know from the likes of yourselves is, what do you think are the main differences between boutique pedals and the obvious culprits like Boss, Digitech, the old DoDs? I mean, I can't fault the personally, and I think the Boss are great pedals. And if you now look at price points, I mean, there isn't much difference between them and some of the kind of boutique builders. But I think what I'm trying to get at is, what do you think is is a tangible difference between them, other than there's a factory with robotic arms that makes the one and a human person that makes the other one?
Well, I mean, the first thing is I bet you at all of them a human person is making most of those things, except for maybe circuit board type stuff. But as far as assembling the pedal, I can't imagine there's any pedal factory that has robotic arms assembling the pedal.
Well, I was going to say Chinese arms, but
well, and therein lies some of the big difference, and the biggest reason for cost difference. Yeah, you can point to the quality components, but where you build something has a huge impact on the cost difference, and also just the scale at which you build something. So, you know, if Boss is building their stuff in China in much larger quantities, they can get it a lot cheaper, not just because their parts are cheaper, but because they're paying the people to assemble them a lot less than we would pay the people to assemble them here. So, the one thing I always try to think about is when it comes to price is always, you can reduce the price in one of two ways. You can make something more efficient, which is what we work on really hard, is efficiency, so that fewer people can do more work, and that's always ideal. Or the flip side is you can make something cheaper just by paying people less to do the same work.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you move manufacturing to China. You're doing that, and you can debate the merits of that, but that's still the fact that why you would move it there is so that you can pay people less to do the same work.
Do you think that the whole kind of mass of quantity of stuff that you have and the ability to market and all this, do you think that plays a huge role? Because the thing that I see from when I started doing this and looking at all these guys, I mean, it's not like there's a lack of decent pedal builders out there now. I mean, easily.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot, and they range from full time to kind of large to literally a guy in his bedroom. I mean. And it's as if nearly all the stuff is fairly purchasable. I'm quite surprised because I pretty much find a new, what I would call a respectable builder, seller, probably every day. You know.
Yeah. It's part of that has to do with, you know, to build your very, very first pedal in terms of parts, it might cost you $50. You know, you might actually design a product and only spend a few $100s. So it doesn't take. What's nice about it is that in order for people to, you know, sort of start something, they don't need to have this large investment, you know, set aside to do that. Whereas, you know, there are other types of companies where you need that. So that's why you see so many, just such a wide range, and so many people doing it. And you know, some people just do it because it's fun, and that's why, you know, you'll get that guy who might build 5 things a month, but it's just his hobby. And but I think one of the other flip side with the boutique and kind of the mass produced, and it's not like there's this separation. It's a continuum of how people do things and how they're done. But one of the biggest things is, or at least that I'm finding, is that there's more of an art form to many of the boutique pedals, as far as like how the approach to the design is, where it tends to be, and this isn't always true, but for some of those mass-produced ones, it tends to be more about the engineering, because it's about accomplishing a task and getting it at a certain price so that people will buy it. Which is it's not like that is always a bad approach, but when it comes to, you know, something that's as personal as your own tone, I think there's just an interaction and experience that, hey, I can call up the guy who designed it and he'll talk to me.
Well, I think,
or I can get this customized, and that experience, or hey, there's like in the boutique industry, like if I designed a product and I only sold 100 of them, that wouldn't be awesome, but it also wouldn't be terrible, because I can make money off 100 pedals. Well, if you're Boss and you only sell 100 of those things, it's not worth your time.
That's right. Yeah.
And so in the boutique world, you can get these interesting, unique ideas that you can find that you're just not going to find on a mass-produced scale because they're not marketable. So I see big merit for both, but there's just going to be natural challenges for both and natural limitations on each side.
I also noticed that it's kind of like the open source coders and all those guys. It's a very open, friendly, sharing, giving bunch of guys.
We've had lots of conversation with guys and had just especially when we get to go to the shows. I mean, it's just like it's a good time, and they love to talk shop, and I've learned much from their experiences. So it's a nice community of guys to just kind of, when you need to ask a question, you can kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
They're not like, oh, that's a trade secret.
It's not magician stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain things that's like, okay, I don't feel comfortable disclosing that, but because it is still business, but it is definitely the walls are much thinner in the boutique world.
Peter, thank you so much. That's an hour I took of you. Thanks a lot, really. I really appreciate it. I wish you all the best. I hope you don't scale down too much with the impending enlargement.
Oh, we don't plan to scale down. If anything, we're going in the direction. Yeah.
All right. Very good. Very good. And I hope everybody is well. And all the best. And thanks again.
All right. Thank you.
I'll have the stuff up in a couple of days, probably.
Okay. Cool.